No one prepares you for this part. The part of growth where the room gets quiet. The messages stop coming in. The people who used to laugh with you, text you, check on you, they drift away like you were never part of their story. And you wonder, did I do something wrong? You didn't. You just started becoming someone they no longer recognized, someone they couldn't predict, someone who made them uncomfortable, not because you're wrong, but because you're rising. Growth isn't loud. It's not a party. It doesn't come with claps or comfort. It comes with silence, distance, and the strange ache of becoming something real, alone. But here's the part no one tells you. That loneliness you feel, that isolation, it's not a punishment. It's the first sign that you're finally outgrowing the version of you that used to settle. So if you feel alone right now, don't pull back. Don't shrink. You're not lost. You're just ahead of where they stopped. Walking. There's a kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like abandonment. Like you've stepped out onto a road you thought would be full of light and purpose, only to realize no one else took the first step with you. It feels personal, lonely, cold, and yet there's something inside you that tells you to keep walking. That's the paradox of real growth. Everyone talks about transformation like it's some kind of glamorous globe. Like one day you decide to be better, and suddenly your life aligns, your body, your finances, your relationships, your peace. But no one tells you what it actually feels like in the middle. Because real growth doesn't come with fanfare. It doesn't come with applause. It comes with confusion, with isolation, with having to sit in your own mind while everything you thought you needed slowly crumbles away. It's not therapy. It's not comfort. It's warfare. And you are the battlefield. At first, it starts small. You wake up one morning and the things that used to excite you, the texts you used to wait for, feel dry. The friends you once laughed with, their jokes don't hit the same. You're not bitter. You're not angry. You're just different. And no one warned you that becoming different comes at a price. You'll try to explain yourself at first. You'll try to hold on to those conversations, those dynamics, those circles. You'll even water yourself down to avoid making others uncomfortable. Because the last thing you want is to look arrogant, or too good, or distant. But something inside, you'll start to rebel. Quietly, fiercely. You'll begin to pull back. Not because you're better than anyone, but because you're starting to feel like you're betraying your own evolution by staying where you were. And that's when the loneliness sets in. The real kind. Not just being alone in a room, but being surrounded by people and still feeling it's like no one sees you anymore because they don't. They see who you were, not who you're becoming. And when that happens, you're left with a decision most people avoid their entire lives. Shrink back to be accepted. Or stretch forward and be alone. Let me be blunt. If you choose to stretch forward, it's going to hurt a lot. Because growth isn't just about building new things. It's about letting old things die. Identities, attachments, coping mechanisms, roles you played for years. It's realizing that maybe you weren't. It's easygoing. You were just avoiding conflict. That maybe you weren't loyal. You were just afraid of being alone. That maybe you weren't happy. You were just numb. And now the numbness is wearing off. Now the blindfold is falling. Now you see the truth. And truth is never comfortable. Machiavelli once wrote that it is far safer for a leader to be feared than loved if he cannot be both. Now think about that for a second. Not because you want to rule over others, but because your growth will disturb people. And when that happens, love fades. People love the version of you that fit their expectations, the agreeable one, the accommodating one, the always available one. But now you have boundaries. Now you don't tolerate passive aggression or manipulation. Now you say no, without apologizing, and suddenly you're too much. That's the cost of elevation. But here's the truth that no one will say. Out loud, real growth isolates before it elevates. And that isolation isn't weakness. It's necessary, because in that silence, you finally hear yourself clearly. No noise, no opinions, no distractions, just you. And the version of you you're becoming. And yes, it's scary. It feels like starting life over with no map, no mentor, and no company. But it's also the beginning of everything real, see? Growth is like a spiritual detox. Everything that isn't aligned with us, where you're headed, starts to fall away, and it doesn't ask your permission. Old friendships fade. Family members grow distant. You stop craving attention and start craving peace. You stop arguing. You stop trying to prove yourself. You just evolve. But evolution feels like loss until it does. Until one day you realize the silence that once scared you is now sacred. That being misunderstood is better than being misrepresented. That being alone is better than being drained. You realize that the discomfort was never destruction. It was delivery. And slowly the war inside starts to feel like purpose. Because with every lonely night, you become wiser. With every you've changed, you become stronger. With every tear you wipe alone, you become more whole. This is the part of growth no one shows on social media. No reels. No TikToks. No cute captions. Just you sitting with your demons, facing your truth, letting go of the version of you that played it safe for too long, and you begin to see. This isn't the breakdown, this is the awakening. You're not behind, you're not broken, you're not failing, you're shedding. You're unlearning who you were taught to be, so you can finally become who you are in the road ahead. It will test you. It will trigger you. It will tempt you to go back to the familiar, even if that familiar kept you small. But if you keep walking, if you keep breathing through the pain, if you keep trusting the process even when it's silent, you'll wake up one day and realize you didn't lose anyone. You didn't lose anything. You simply returned to yourself. So if you're in the middle of that silence now, if your world is quieter, it's colder, and lonelier than ever before, don't panic. Don't rush to fill the void. Because that void, that's where the real you is being built, not the people-pleaser, not the version of you that needed constant validation, not the mask wearer, but the truth-teller, the boundary-setter, the self-respecting, sovereign, deeply aligned version of you that will never again betray their own soul. For belonging, this is your war. It's not pretty, it's not poetic, but it's necessary. Because on the other side of this battlefield is the life you were meant to lead and the person you were always meant to become. There's a moment in every transformation when you realize you don't relate to them anymore. The jokes don't land the same. The silence between your words feels heavier. You're smiling, but it's not the same smile. They're speaking. But you're somewhere else now. They can feel it. And the worst part, so can you. You used to belong there. That circle, that vibe. That version of you that used to laugh on cue, fit in the script, blend into the story. But now, you started asking different questions. Not, what should I do tonight? But who am I becoming? Not, will they be mad if I say no? But why do I always say yes when it costs me my peace? That's the fracture point. The sacred, this terrifying point where old attachments begin to loosen. Not because you're angry or bitter or better, but because you're waking up. And in that waking, something shifts. You start feeling guilty for things that no longer feel like you, guilty for wanting deeper conversations, guilty for craving more silence, more solitude, guilty for not laughing at the same jokes, not tolerating the same chaos, not responding the way you used to. You try to ignore it at first. You think, maybe I'm just overthinking, maybe I'm the problem, maybe I'm the one changing too fast. But the truth? You're not broken, you're blooming. And blooming will always require space. We're taught to hold on, to stay loyal to people, to places, to versions of ourselves that were never designed to carry us beyond a certain point. But growth, real, soul-deep growth, will always come with a shedding. You're going to lose people, some slowly, some suddenly, some without closure, some with explosions you didn't see coming. And yes, it will hurt. It will hurt when the people you thought would always understand you suddenly don't. It will hurt when they start calling you distant, cold, selfish. Simply because you're no longer available for the emotional chaos you once tolerated. But hear this. Outgrowing people isn't betrayal. It's survival. It's not that you stopped loving them. It's that you started loving yourself, too. And that love, the one you're learning to give to your soul, will always come at a cost. Sometimes that cost is comfort. Sometimes it's nostalgia. Sometimes it's the illusion that the people in your past are meant to walk with you into your future. But growth demands discernment, and discernment often sounds like "I love you, but I can't stay here with you." There's grief in that, not the loud kind, but the quiet kind, the kind that visits you at 2 a.m. when you see their photo, or hear their laugh in your memory, and remember that once it felt safe to be small beside them. But you're not small. Anymore. You've seen too much. You've felt too much. You've bled and rebuilt. Too many times to keep pretending your soul doesn't want more depth, more truth, more peace, more alignment. And if that alignment means walking away from circles you used to dance in, so be it. Because this is where most people get stuck, clinging to who they were because they're afraid of who they might become if they let go. But not you. You're brave enough to mourn the familiar. You're brave enough to say, "I don't belong here anymore," even when it means starting over, even when it means walking alone. Machiavelli once said that the one who adapts to the times will survive. And in this age, emotional survival is evolution. Because you're not just outgrowing people, you're outgrowing dynamics that wounded you, you're outgrowing friendships that normalized your self-abandonment. You're outgrowing the version of yourself that smiled through disrespect, just to keep the peace. And let's be honest, it wasn't peace, it was a performance. A script you followed, so you wouldn't be left behind, so they wouldn't say you changed. But the truth, you have changed, and that's something to be proud of, because change means you're alive. It means you're paying attention. It means you're no longer willing to die quietly in places that won't water your growth. It doesn't make you heartless. It doesn't make you arrogant. It makes you awake. So what do you do when you start waking up? You stop begging people to understand. You stop explaining your healing to those committed to. It's misunderstanding you. You stop shrinking into roles you've outgrown just because it makes someone else feel safer, and you start owning your shift. You stop apologizing for setting boundaries. You stop justifying your absence. You stop feeling guilty for not showing up for others in ways that require you to abandon yourself. And yes, the guilt will still whisper. It will say, "You're being selfish. You're leaving them behind. They need you." But here's the response that will set you free. "I needed me too." Because you were bleeding for people who wouldn't even hand you a bandage. You were listening to problems that drained you dry, while your own heart sat in silence, waiting for you to care. So now it's your time to walk away, to breathe without explanation, to grow without permission. Because you weren't meant to shrink to fit old stories. You were meant to outgrow them. And yes, some people will resent that. They'll say you changed. They'll say you got cold. They'll say you forgot who you were, but you didn't forget. You remembered who you were before they conditioned you to be convenient and the people meant for you. They won't require you to go backwards to be loved. They'll meet you where you are healed. It's powerful, whole, not half. So if you're grieving right now, grieving people who don't understand you anymore, grieving relationships that couldn't survive your evolution, let yourself feel it. But don't go back, because the pain of leaving will fade. But the pain of staying in places where your soul doesn't belong, that pain never does. You're not betraying anyone by choosing yourself. You're not heartless for choosing quiet over chaos. You're not selfish for wanting to breathe in spaces that feel safe. You're just finally becoming honest. And that honesty, even when it costs you everything familiar, is the price of becoming real. This is the shedding. This is the shift in you. You're surviving it beautifully. There comes a point in your evolution where the noise fades. Not just the noise around you, but the noise inside you. The distractions lose their flavor. The drama loses its pull. The fake urgency of texts, deadlines, and shallow plans stops mattering. And all that's left is silence. and that silence scares most people because silence isn't empty. It's full of fruit, full of all the questions you've been avoiding, full of the voice you forgot you had, the one that whispers at night when no one's watching. This isn't who I am anymore. But to hear that voice, you need to sit still long enough. And in that stillness, something begins to happen, something most people run from. You meet yourself, not the version you show on social media, not the version your family expects, not the version your past tried to trap you in, but the real. You asked the you beneath the people-pleasing, the you beneath the survival tactics, the you that existed before the world told you who to be. And here's the twist. That meeting doesn't feel magical at first. It feels lonely, feels disorienting. It feels like losing everything, because you are. You're losing the noise, the performative smiles, the false comfort of external validation, the illusion of belonging in places that drained your soul. You're standing in front of a mirror that reflects nothing but your raw self, and the silence around you is deafening. You start to realize you don't miss the people as much as you miss the version of yourself you didn't know any better. You don't miss the relationships. You miss the distraction they provided from the NCA. You didn't know how to name. You don't miss the noise. You miss how it kept you from hearing the truth. And the truth is this. Loneliness isn't a punishment. It's a purification. It's the sacred ground where everything false is stripped away. You start noticing the patterns, the addictions too, tension, the way you used busyness to numb your confusion, the way you attached yourself to broken people hoping to feel whole. And it hurts. It aches in places you didn't know had nerves. It pulls your chest open and says, look at what you've ignored. Look at what you've tolerated. Look at what you've accepted as love. And if you're brave enough to keep looking, to not run, not distract, not perform, you start to see something else beneath all that. Cain. You start to see you, the one who didn't need to perform, the one who didn't need to prove, the one who didn't need to be loved by everyone because they finally remembered how to love themselves. And that version of you, it was always there. It was just buried beneath expectations, beneath stories, beneath there. That's what loneliness gives you. It strips away the noise so you can finally hear your truth. And yes, it's messy. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it gets dark. But in that darkness, something happens that no crowd can give you. You become whole, not dependent, not defined by who checks in on you, not shaped by likes or comments or invitations, but whole. You start enjoying your own company. You start trusting your own thoughts. You start realizing that your intuition wasn't broken. It was just buried under everyone else's voice. And from that place, you rise. Not because anyone told you to, not because anyone noticed, but because you finally understand. Loneliness was never the enemy. It was the invitation to return, to realign, to remember, and slowly you begin to rebuild, not the life that pleases others, but the life that reflects you. You start choosing peace over popularity, alignment over attachment, silence over small talk, depth over drama. You start laughing without checking who's watching, crying without hiding it, loving without performing. You start living not to be seen, but to see yourself fully. And guess what? Right. Once you reach that point, the loneliness doesn't sting the same way. It becomes sacred. It becomes a signal that you are in alignment, that you are no longer addicted to distraction, that your presence is finally louder than your past. And when people come back into your life, because some will, they'll meet a version of you they've never seen, .com or stronger, unshakable, unapologetic ally whole. Some will leave again because they can't reach you anymore. You've outgrown their chaos. You've outgrown the roles they placed you in. Let them go, not with anger, but with honor. Because your path now, it's clear not because you found a guru, not because you read the right book, but because you sat in the silence long enough to hear your own wisdom. And that wisdom came through loneliness, it came through pain, it came through you. So if you're feeling isolated now, if you're in the thick of it, hold on. Don't rush to fill the silence. Don't run back to what you've already outgrown. Don't beg to belong in rooms that don't recognize your worth. Because what you're walking through isn't the end. It's the beginning. The beginning of clarity, of sovereignty, of radical peace. And once you learn to be okay alone, truly alone, no one can ever hold power over you again. That's not loneliness. That's liberation. So here you are, on the other side of the noise, on the edge of everything you used to know. Tired, maybe heavier, maybe but clearer, stronger, wiser, and most of all free. You didn't lose your mind. You didn't lose your light. You didn't lose yourself. You found yourself in the silence, in the loneliness, in the quiet spaces where the world couldn't reach you. But your truth finally could. They'll call you distant. Now cold changed, different. Let them, because they don't know what it cost you to get here. They don't know the nights you sat with your pain and didn't run. They don't know how many layers you peeled off. It's just to breathe again, but you know, and that's enough. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're not lost. You're becoming. And if it feels like no, one understands you right now. It's not because you're invisible. It's because you're rising, and most people only notice when it's loud. But your rise, it's happening in silence. And when you finally step out of this season whole, rooted, unshakable, they'll say you changed overnight. Let them. Because this version of you was built in fire, sharpened in solitude, and born in the kind of loneliness that doesn't break people. It builds them. You're not alone. You're just ahead, and ahead is exactly where you belong.